TaxAct is here anytime you want to easily file your taxes. TaxAct is here for the early birds who like to knock them out as soon as the season opens. And for the procrastinators who like to wait until the very last minute. TaxAct is also here for the middlers who file right in the middle of tax season. No one ever talks about the middlers, but TaxAct sees you, and TaxAct respects you. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative. On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, one of Mr. Trump's tweets is the bad coverage of the war. He rips into the New York Times. He rips into the Wall Street Journal. Somebody's going to go and get me the tweet, and I'll read more of it on the air. The other thing that's happened is huge attack on Karg Island, which is the main energy depot of Iran. Is where they refine most of it, probably 90% of the refining, and at least 90% of the exports. Now, they didn't hit the energy side, according to Mr. Trump's latest tweet, but he destroyed the military side. Apparently, it was a huge operation. So let's talk about that. I mean, people keep telling me he's not going to follow through and open up the Strait of Hormuz, and I just don't understand that. He's saying he will, CENTCOM will, the Navy will, just give them time. Anyway, we are welcome and we are blessed to have General Jack Keane, who is the, of course, retired Four-Star General, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, Fox News senior strategic analyst, and I might add a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. I was in the room when he got it. General Keane, as always, sir, it's a blessing to have you on this show. You've been so wonderful to us and to everybody and this whole war effort. Karg Island. Apparently they just slammed Karg Island, took out the military, not the oil facilities necessarily, but the military targets. And the president had tweeted that. Your thoughts on Karg Island?
Yes. Well, Karg Island is a significant strategic asset, given the economic side of it that you mentioned, given 80 to 90% of the distribution of crude oil goes through there. The military attack, I mean, it's not that it was critical militarily for us to hit those sites, that military targets that were there. But what this really is a warning to Iran that Karg Island is vulnerable to us. Mm-hmm. We did not hit the economic targets, obviously the distribution points of the oil itself. But this is a warning to Iran that if you continue to challenge the Persian Gulf Straits, at the Straits of Hormuz, and in terms of distribution and flow of oil, that at some point, when it's convenient and right for us, we are going to take control of Karg Island. And that is the message that has been delivered here. And that's why we selected these military targets and ignored the economic targets. Now, what would we likely do here going forward? I think once we're able to take off the board all the drones, the UAVs, and the ballistic missiles, and the anti-strike missiles, that in of itself permits the United States Navy to escort ships through the Straits of Hormuz, and that's what we're waiting for. There's no lack of intent here, and you're absolutely right, Larry. Those who are chirping and saying, well, what's going on here, that we're not going to follow through. We're not going to sail ships down the entire escort ships down the coastline of Iran at a time when they can take a shot at those ships, and makes no sense, and do so in the Straits of Hormuz, where you could tie up and have a bottleneck there because of sunk ships. That makes no sense. So we're not going to do that until the time is right. But listen, Larry, we have a huge leverage here. When we get to the point where Iran no longer has offensive capability, it hasn't had defensive capability since the first 36 hours of the campaign. But when they lose their offensive capability, we can use Karg Island as huge leverage. We can we can threaten to take it, and that's leverage point one. We can, two, occupy it, and that's another leverage point, or we could blockade it. In any event, at that point, Iran knows that the United States will take control of their most strategic asset. Now, does that give us leverage in negotiating with the regime in changing their behavior? This regime has never bent to any kind of negotiations or diplomatic effort to change their behavior. So we don't know the answer to that. But we do know that would be the first time ever that we can economically bankrupt them completely. And obviously at some point that regime would collapse just because of that. So that's what the intent here is. That's the strategic intent of why Carg Island matters and why this warning shot is sending a message to them about the inevitable which is coming.
100%. It makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know. I've never understood, General. Well, maybe I should. I don't want to be naive. The American media tends to be very left-wing oriented. Not everybody in the media. Fox is not left-wing oriented, but even some of Fox's publications, the Wall Street Journal used to be straight down the middle. The editorial page is still pretty conservative editorial page. But, Trump makes a point this morning in a tweet, a frustration point. These newspapers, including the Wall Street Journal, reporting that, we've had all these planes have been damaged in Saudi Arabia. And it's not true. It's not true. They weren't damaged. They weren't put out of business. People were not killed. They had them up and going very quickly. The whole reporting was bad. Trump singled out the Journal and the New York Times. I know the New York Times typical. But the second point, General, here we are. Is anyone reporting this important Carg Island thing? No. You can't find it. You can't. I'm looking at the front pages. You can't find it. So what you just said is so important. I don't think people know that. The public eventually will get to know it because CENTCOM will put it out and the president will put it out and so forth. Pete Hegseth will put it out, but nobody wants to report it. We're not losing the war. We're winning the war. We're a week or two away from absolutely winning the war. We're a week or two away from reopening the Straits of Hormuz, as you just said. It's just not being. If I had any hair, I'd pull it out, but I don't. I mean, I say this every night on our show. I don't know why the reporting is so bad. We are doing fabulously well.
Well, we've been dealing, with media in this country and the world writ large, for some time in terms of mainstream media being left of center. And that wouldn't be so bad in of itself. There's nothing wrong with different viewpoints. But when you don't deal with the facts, that's the problem I have. When it's so distorted, when there's an inherent bias here for not wanting us to succeed, when we emphasize all the negative things as opposed to the overwhelming positive things that are taking place day in and day out here. And it's really quite a remarkable campaign. And yes, and it is one of the reasons why I have taken to be on the air more than I ever have. I mean, Fox fortunately leaves it up to me. How much I will do. And I have another life other than talking on Fox that I have to maintain. But nonetheless, I put everything aside. And I did that purposely so that people would get the facts and try to balance the distortion that is out there. And I've met people as I'm circulating around who normally are not on Fox. And said, listen, I'm listening to Fox because I can get the facts of what's happening. I can't get it in the normal outlets I pay attention to. And appreciate your commentary. This is not about me, Larry. I'm talking about just trying to get the accurate information in front of the American people. Listen, public support during a war is critical. Yep. This is an open democratic society here. And the president's made a decision to take this country to war. And the American people getting the facts so they can make judgments about how this is going is very, very important in terms of public support for what's happening. So you put your finger on one of the problems we have. And so our audience understands Iran and Russia are conducting a sophisticated campaign in this country on social media where so many of the outlets are actually being fed by Iran and Russia. Now, people don't know they're being fed by Iran and Russia. They believe they're American or European. And they are very sophisticated at this. Russia does it whenever there's some incident that's taken place in the United States, like the George Floyd murder, like the anti-Semitism attacks that are taking place. They exploit all of that. And people don't recognize, of course, they're not identified as being Russia at all. So that is also happening here. We have a complete distortion, an information campaign trying to impact the American people, so they put pressure on the Trump administration, to stop, to shut down and end this conflict. And so even our adversaries, in this case Russia and Iran specifically, recognize how important the American people matter, and they want to see political pressure levied against the administration. So yes, getting the facts out there is really critical, and I share your frustration.
You talked, I think it was on the TV show this past week, but, you talked about morale. You talked about morale, first of all, morale of the enemy, destroying the morale of the enemy. But there's also the morale on the home front. That's the part that concerns me. But interestingly, a poll came out, a very good pollster, John McLaughlin, you may or may not know him. He'll be on this show. He's a dear friend of mine, 30 years. But Americans are rallying to this, maybe surprisingly, because some early polls suggested not. But as people understand, the mission is to stop Iran's nuclear power and to stop their terrorist power. They are rallying around it. I mean, big numbers, General, like in the mid-50s, that kind of thing, and growing and rising, which is really fascinating and heartening. And I don't know if you saw, just one more. I don't know if you know David Boies, famous defense lawyer. I don't know if you
I know. I know him and his wife Mary.
Yes, there you go.
Wonderful people.
Yes. Yeah. He's a liberal Democrat. He's not a Trump guy, but he wrote a fabulous article in the Wall Street Journal. I mean, I talked about it on the show last night and this morning here, saying there should be no partisanship during the war and noting that, the last 5 or 6 or 7 presidents have all pledged to stop Iran, but none took any action. Trump is taking action, and we should support the action. How about that? And he's chiding his own political party. It was in the Wall Street Journal editorial page Friday, sir, and it was the New York Post wrote about it. I wrote about it. I mean, it's really, if you know David Boies, you know he's not a Trumper. But he's saying, wait a second, this is very important for our country and our kids, and we should not be attacking it or Trump just because we don't like Trump. I mean, it was a fascinating piece.
Yeah, I read it, and,
okay.
I certainly felt very good about it to see someone of his stature making that point. And that's kind of the way we used to be, and it's unfortunate. Right from the beginning, there was such adversity to committing to doing this. And while this is not a strike, for one night or two, by anybody's definition, I mean, this is a limited war. We're talking about something that's going to take weeks, not months, and certainly not years, and is not going to involve ground forces to take over a country and change the political order. So once you make those decisions, the war is limited in scale and in scope. And the president said that right from the beginning. I mean, he told them flat what the objectives were, is to take away the offensive capability that Iran had to be a predator in the region and to do damage to the United States and our allies and partners, and make certain there was nothing nuclear left as a result of that. He wasn't talking about changing the political order unless the people wanted to do that. And so by definition, it was limited, and then people ran off in a completely different direction, that this is going to be a forever war, it's going to be a protracted war, and completely distorting the facts and the message that the president had. And And you know why this is happening. It has so much more to do with their opposition to the president as opposed to the policy, in my judgment. And that's something we haven't seen, at least in the scale of that objection, in the past. But right, I'm delighted to see the American people change it. I haven't seen that poll.
Yep.
But thanks, and you're going to give air to it here. That's good.
I'll get it over to you. I'll get the poll results over to you. And the boys column may not change the Democratic Party, but hopefully they're reading about it because this is so important. I guess finally, what are you expecting? What happens next? Now, I mean, President Trump made an offhanded comment this past week. There wasn't much left to bomb. So there's not that much left to bomb. He hit Carg Island. That was left to bomb. That's a major move, as you noted. At some point, I mean, I don't know. Who else left? The Revolutionary Guard. I'm just surprised. The reports are that they're going to hang on forever, but how can you keep hanging on when you have nothing to hang on to?
Well, a couple of points. The president's point, I think when he looks at the whole of where we started and where we are now, I mean, it is dramatically different. I mean, the capability for them to retaliate is less than 10% of what they had when we began. So that's what's driving the president's comments. But even to finish off that less than 10% and to do it deliberately and methodically, that still will take some time. And the second thing is the Israelis in this combined operation, while they're helping, with the ballistic missiles, with the drones, and also with the manufacturing centers. And so our audience understand, as of yesterday morning, there were 15,000 strikes against Iran. The Israelis made 9,000 of those 15,000. So what they're doing here, the scale of it, is really quite significant. And what they are doing is working on the organizations that sustain the regime, and deliberately. Now, this is tougher. When you're going after a missile site or a launcher or a place where drones are stored, that's one thing. Or underground missile sites, or if you're taking down a nuclear site, those are fixed. You're dealing with an organization. What is it mostly? While they may have facilities, once you blow up one of those facilities, they're not going to go into another one. They're going to go into a clandestine site someplace because it's people-oriented. These are challenging targets. So, yes, we've blown up their headquarters. The Israelis are attacking the Baza militia. They're in the streets at various checkpoints and going after the law enforcement command, going after the police infrastructure, taking down what sustains this regime and what they will ability to survive and hold on to. Yep. The degree that we can take most of that down, like we're doing with the hard sites, missiles, drones, nuclear, that will contribute to how weak fundamentally this regime is and whether they'll be able to continue on or not. And the mission the Israelis have given themselves, this is different from our mission, is set the conditions for a regime collapse.
Right.
And they're about doing that and also helping with the task that we're doing as well.
Wow. General Jack Keane, thank you, sir. We're out of time. I hate to say it, but you've been great. That last point is really crucial. Maybe we'll work on that this week on the TV show. General Jack Keane, who is Fox News senior strategic analyst, among his many other millions of credits. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it, as always. Folks, I got to take a break, and we'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.